Your emotions are not your enemies. Let me say it again. Your emotions are not your enemies. You feel that surge in your chest and you think it is you. That little flame that flares when someone cuts you off, when an email lands like a verdict, when your partner says the wrong word in front of your friends, it feels like proof that you are reacting authentically. It is not proof, it is pattern. It is a reaction wired by the amygdala and fueled by cortisol and adrenaline that makes decisions feel urgent when they are not. Right now, you are losing small claims on your future because you act on that urgency. In this video, you will learn a precise way to create space between what happens and how you respond. A set of tools you can use immediately in a meeting, at the dinner table, or in the moments that decide whether you keep a job or a relationship. If you stay with me, you will have a method to interrupt automatic reactivity, a practice to reframe the story your brain tells, and a daily routine that rewires your baseline with neuroplasticity. Breathe, notice, choose. Breathe, notice, choose. This is the promise. React less and everything in your life begins to change. Let me paint the cost in clear detail so it is impossible to ignore. In one monthly review, you lose a promotion because you answer a snide remark in a meeting with sarcasm. At home, you lose trust because you snapped after a long day and then apologized until it became hollow. In interviews, you are passed over because your temper makes people see risk in what you otherwise offer. Data is not dramatic, but it is steady. Studies of workplace behavior link uncontrolled reactivity to reduced leadership opportunities and lower peer-rated performance. Repeated spikes of cortisol and adrenaline are linked to disrupted sleep and higher blood pressure. Those physiological footprints change how your prefrontal cortex functions when you need it most. Think of the email thread that escalated into a private message war. Think of the pitch you did not make because your stomach tightened and your throat closed. Think of the small scene at dinner where you made a joke that landed as an accusation and the room cooled. Each of those moments compounds. They are withdrawals from your reputation bank. You do not see the balance sheet until months later when an important relationship phrase or a career pathway narrows. That is the silent economy of reactivity, opportunity drained in increments. You must feel the urgency because this is reversible. You must also accept that reversing it takes more than willpower. It takes understanding the mechanism and practicing new habits. Here is why it happens in plain terms. When you perceive a social threat, the amygdala flags danger and fires a cascade that increases heart rate and pumps adrenaline into your system within a few hundred milliseconds. The prefrontal cortex, which reasons and plans, does not get full access until that storm settles. In other words, your body moves faster than your judgment. The default mode is survive first, assess later. Neuroscience shows that this pattern can be interrupted by simple physiological steps because the vagus nerve can be engaged to calm the heart and return blood flow to the prefrontal areas. Milliseconds matter and repetition matter. Every time you react without a pause, you strengthen neural loops that make the same reaction easier next time. But neuroplasticity means that you can also create new loops. With guided practice, you can train a new baseline where pause becomes the default and choice replaces impulse. Imagine the amygdala as a smoke alarm and the prefrontal as the building manager. The alarm is loud and urgent. The manager gets ignored unless there is a protocol to check the alarm and decide whether to evacuate or to reset the system. That protocol is what we will build. It is not suppression. It is not shutting off feeling. It is emotional alchemy, turning raw reactivity into strategic response. Now let us map the framework you will use to do this work reliably. Think in 4 levels. Level 1 is detection. You must recognize the trigger and the bodily signature it creates. Level 2 is interruption. You need a short toolkit to stop momentum in the body. Level 3 is interpretation. This is where reframing and labeling live. You change the meaning from threat to data. Level 4 is practice and consolidation. You build resilience by rehearsing these skills until they become baseline. Ask yourself brief diagnostic questions out loud. Where do I feel this in my body right now? Is the story I am telling myself true and useful? What small step gives me time? These questions are simple, but they force the prefrontal to re-engage. Notice how detection is sensory, interruption is mechanical, interpretation is linguistic, and consolidation is habitual. When you can move through these 4 levels in under a minute, you have shifted from reacting to leading your internal state. I will give you a tool you can use now. Call it the STOP protocol, with a small modification that emphasizes breath and language. Stop. Orient. Pause and breathe for box breathing for 4 counts. Name it out loud with a labeling phrase. Proceed. Here is how it looks in practice in a tense office room. Maya says something cutting about your work in front of Daniel, and the room goes still. You feel heat in your face and pressure behind the eyes. You say nothing at first. You stop. You orient by looking at the clock and noting the color of the mug in front of you. You breathe with the box breathing pattern. Inhale for 4 count, hold for 4 count, exhale for 4 count, hold for 4 count. You label the feeling. I am feeling embarrassed and defensive. Then you choose to speak with a script. I want to understand what you mean. Can we step aside and talk this through after the meeting? That script buys you space and preserves your reputation. Here is a compact technical description of box breathing in clinical terms. Sit upright with feet grounded. Inhale quietly through the nose for 4 slow counts until the diaphragm rises. Hold gently for 4 counts without strain. Exhale for 4 counts through the mouth with a soft release. Hold empty for 4 counts and repeat 3 times. This regulates heart rate variability and engages the vagus nerve, reducing cortisol. Use it in the moment and practice it daily. You can use the same structure for a text message by pausing before sending and writing a neutral clarifying sentence instead of a reactive one. If you have already tried a quick breathing trick and it felt superficial, I understand. This tool is meant to be practiced in calm times so you can access it under pressure. Now, a short moment with you. If you have ever felt your heart race during a conversation and later wished you had said something different, you are not alone. Write in the comments a line starting with, I reacted when, and then the short phrase that follows. If you prefer one word, pick RA in order to show anger or anxiety, or AN for frustration. Your example helps others see they are not alone, and it helps me design future episodes that address the patterns in our community. When you comment, I read examples and sometimes build content from common scenarios. This is how we turn learning into community practice. Now return focus, because next we will deepen into more advanced tools that change the interpretation your brain makes in real time. Let us move to techniques that change the story your brain tells. Reframing is the first advanced tool. When your brain labels a situation as attack, it recruits defense. If you can reframe the intent, you reduce the perceived severity. For example, if Marcus sends a curt message, you can reframe, Marcus is under deadline, not attacking me. Labeling is related, and clinical research shows that simply naming the emotion out loud reduces amygdala activity. Say, I am feeling irritated aloud, and you will feel a measurable drop in intensity. Use scripted language to redirect interactions. What I heard was X is a way to pause meaning and avoid escalation. Somatic practices complement this work. Grounding exercises, such as noticing 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 steady breath, function as multisensory interrupts to recalibrate your baseline. Practice these techniques with a coach like Elena or with a trusted friend like Priya, and you will notice that patterns change because neuroplasticity favors repetition. Here is a procedural note about labeling that is technical and practical. When you name an emotion, choose a single word, say it aloud, and pause for 3 seconds before any other reaction. This creates a cognitive gap that reduces automatic escalation and allows the prefrontal cortex to re-engage. Do this 10 times in safe settings to build a habit. You also need a toolbox for longer-term optimization beyond in-the-moment responses. These techniques include stress inoculation training, which gradually exposes you to controlled levels of stress to expand tolerance. A simple stress inoculation exercise looks like this. Identify a low-intensity trigger, practice your stop routine, perform a role play with feedback, and gradually increase intensity over weeks. Combine this with sleep hygiene that reduces baseline cortisol by setting a consistent sleep window and limiting screens before bed. Nutrition and movement matter too because blood glucose swings and dehydration make reactivity worse. Build a morning baseline ritual, 20 minutes of movement, focal breathing, or journaling to direct your cognitive bandwidth for the day. Integrate labeling and reframing into regular check-ins with a mentor such as Rivera or a peer like Sam. Use neuroplasticity intentionally with a routine that repeats the skills in low stakes so they transfer into high stakes. Evidence from cognitive training programs shows measurable prefrontal strengthening after 8 weeks of regular practice. That is not magic. It is consistent, intentional practice. Now let us focus on resilience and sustaining gains. Resilience is not resistance to feeling, it is the capacity to recover. Structure your environment to make the default easier. Reduce exposure to chronic triggers by curating your social feed and by setting clearer boundaries with people like Daniel and Marcus who tend to light the match. Build a recovery plan for days when everything feels stacked. A 1-hour reset that includes movement, connection with a trusted person, and a brief breath-focused meditation to return to baseline. Invest in sleep because the prefrontal cannot perform when you are sleep-deprived. Consider using slow exposure practice where you intentionally put yourself in slightly uncomfortable conversations to desensitize through repetition. Create a public baseline measure with a coach or an accountability partner such as Elena who records a short reflection each week. Over time, your baseline will shift. You will notice that triggers become less automatic and your default response becomes a pause. This is stress inoculation turned into a lifestyle. It is not a sprint. It is a practice of daily small wins returned on the compound interest of neuroplasticity. Now we apply everything to high-pressure scenarios where reputations and resources are at stake. Scene 1 is a boardroom negotiation with Daniel, the CEO, Maya, the product lead, Elena, the moderator, and Sam taking notes. You are 3 minutes from presenting when Maya makes a critique that feels personal. You sense heat in your neck, your tongue thickens, and the clock becomes louder in your ears. Dialogue flows so you can see how the protocol works. You look at Maya and say in a neutral voice, "I hear your concern about timelines. Can you explain what outcome you need?" Maya answers, "We need hard dates and quality assurances." You reply, "I want to make sure we meet both. Could we outline the deliverables and the milestones now?" Maya nods. You feel saliva on your tongue, and the fluorescent lights glare in a new way. The room smells like coffee and polished wood, and your suit sleeve brushes against a cool leather chair. Those sensory details anchor you in the moment and slow the spin in your head. Use the box breathing discreetly in a pocket or on a few slow sips of water. The exchange shows that a small script buys time to reframe and lead the room rather than react and lose the opportunity. Scene 2 is a family dinner with Priya and Marcus and Elena where an old grievance surfaces. You hear the cutlery, plastic against plate, you smell cinnamon from a dessert, and the living room feels warmer than your composure. Priya says, "You never listen." You reply, "I hear that you felt unheard. Can you tell me one moment when that happened?" Priya answers, "When I asked about my day and you looked at your phone." You say, "I am sorry. Can we try a 5-minute check-in after dessert?" The exchange contains sensory notes of the lemon tea bitterness and the soft echo of laughter from the next room. The pause allows repair instead of escalation. It changes the story you and others tell about you. Scene 3 is a crisis call from Marcus, whose team has a critical outage and the pressure compresses time. Your heart hammers like a drum, your palms are damp, and your mouth tastes metallic. You open the call and say in a measured voice, "Show me what you see, now." Marcus answers, "The system crashed and we have customer impact." You say, "Who else is on this, and what is the first containment step?" Marcus lists names and actions, and you assign a single clear next step and schedule a follow-up in 20 minutes. The clarity in the script reduce cortisol for everyone and let technical work proceed. In each scene, the sensory descriptions are vivid: the coffee heat, the thread of humidity, the sharpness of a fluorescent light, the weight of a chair, the metallic taste of adrenaline. Those sensory anchors are not decorative. They are tools that pull you into present awareness and out of narrative reactivity. Within these scenes include backstories and named allies to make this practical and human. Your personal backstory shapes how you respond. You grew up in a house where emotion equaled volatility and silence equaled safety. As a child, you learned to speak only when the stakes were low and to swallow anger when it could be dangerous. In college, you studied engineering where rationality was prized and feelings resembled noise. A mentor named Professor Liu taught you basic cognitive science and introduced you to the idea that the brain rewires with practice. Later, a breakup and a professional failure landed you in therapy with Coach Rivera, who taught you grounding and slow exposure. You lost 2 jobs early in your career because you could not temper a quick tongue, but you also learned to listen and to reframe with help. That history left you with a drive to master emotional leadership because you saw the cost of reactivity in relationships and in reputations. This backstory explains why you practice every morning with box breathing and why you keep a journal of triggers. It explains your patience now and your urgency then. It also creates empathy for others who learn different survival rules in their families. You are not broken. You are trained, and you now hold the tools to retrain. Now, 3 moments of tension that test you and force a decision. Moment 1. You receive a hostile email from a client accusing you of negligence. The screen glows a sterile blue, the room smells faintly of printer toner, and your hands tremble. You remember a past humiliation and a memory of being publicly shamed. The internal voice says, "Respond sharply to defend yourself." The other voice asks, "What outcome do you want, and whether escalation will help?" You choose to pause, to breathe, use labeling, and send a clarifying question to reframe the issue. That decision buys time and changes the tone of the interaction. Moment 2. You are on stage in front of a packed auditorium and a heckler interrupts with a shouted accusation. The heat on your face increases, the microphone vibrates slightly, and the audience murmurs. You can feel the floor under your shoes and the cool air from the vents. You label your feeling aloud and redirect with a short script. "I appreciate the passion. Let us discuss this after, and now let me finish the point." You proceed, and the audience follows. Moment 3. You are negotiating the sale of your company, and Daniel makes an offer that feels like an insult. The boardroom smell is strong with polished wood and brewed coffee. The paper feels crisp under your fingertips, and the clock keeps time. You notice the familiar knot in your stomach, and you resist the urge to throw a counter that burns bridges. You ask for a 5-minute break, use box breathing, and then return with a measured reframe that steers the negotiation to value creation. Each of these moments runs 500 to 600 characters in your memory because they compress the stakes and the internal battle. They are not isolated failures. They are opportunities to practice the pause and to make different choices. Alongside these narratives, you need concrete technical procedures you can follow repeatedly. A critical one is the rehearsal protocol for high-stakes conversations. Spend 30 minutes mapping the script with a partner, then role-play the trigger at increasing intensity and record the session. After each run, provide feedback focused on sensory anchors and script adjustments. Repeat 3 times per week. This procedural routine embeds muscle memory and adjusts the language until it... Another technical process is the morning baseline routine, which takes 20 minutes. 5 minutes of mobility, 5 minutes of focused breathing, 10 minutes of planning with one priority to protect your cognitive bandwidth. That routine lowers baseline cortisol and prepares prefrontal resources for the day. You will not do this work alone. Name your allies and their roles. Maya will be your mirror in product conversations, providing honest feedback. Daniel will be the executive who holds the company's stake and will be coached on fair but direct language. Priya is the partner who will agree to a 5-minute check-in request. Marcus is the friend who runs incident drills with you. Elena is the coach who leads your stress inoculation sessions. Sam is the note-taker and observer in meetings. Professor Liu is the neuroscientist whose research informs your technical understanding. Coach Rivera is the therapist who offers deeper emotional integration. Each person has a clear action and feedback role, and you will use their input to accelerate neuroplasticity. Now imagine the compound effect of small, steady choices. In 1 month, you practice box breathing daily and you notice fewer flare-ups in meetings. You sleep better because nighttime cortisol dips and you wake with a clearer baseline. In 3 months, people comment they are seeing a change in how you handle friction. Offers and responsibilities that used to make you anxious now evoke curiosity. You have rehearsed the scripts with Maya and Marcus, and they now predictably de-escalate when triggers arise. The monthly performance review shows improved ratings from peers who previously labeled you as reactive. In 6 months, the accumulation is visible to others and to you. You lead a negotiation where your calm behavior saves an opportunity that would have been lost to an impulsive reply. You hear quieter internal narration and you find that your default is pause, not reply. Your relationships retain trust more readily. Your health markers like sleep and recovered heart rate variability show progress. Neuroplasticity is not metaphoric here. It is measurable through behavior and through the subtle shift of your baseline. Practical next steps you can take starting today are straightforward. First, pick one short script to use in the next conflict. I want to understand. Tell me more. Second, practice box breathing twice a day for 5 minutes. Third, schedule a rehearsal with an ally and role-play the top 3 triggers you face. Fourth, keep a simple trigger journal where you note the context, the feeling, and the action you took. Fifth, commit to 1 month of practice and then reassess. These are concrete actions you can take that produce measurable results. Before we close, remember the vocabulary that helps you frame the work. Amygdala and prefrontal describe the hardware. Cortisol and adrenaline describe the chemistry. Vagus and heart rate variability describe the pathway to calm. Box breathing, labeling, and reframe describe the tools. Neuroplasticity describes the capacity to change. Baseline and trigger describe the terrain. Stress inoculation and resilience describe the training plan. Emotional alchemy names the transformation we are doing. Use these words to educate your team and your allies so language becomes a scaffold for change. If you want ongoing guidance, consider subscribing to this channel where we will provide guided scripts, practice sessions, and interviews with experts like Professor Liu and coaches like Elena and Coach Rivera. We will post templates for the rehearsal protocol and a downloadable 30-day plan that tracks breathing sessions, role plays, and journaling prompts. Join the community and use the comments to share a "I reacted when" sentence so we can compile common patterns and build episodes tailored to your situations. You do not have to live at the mercy of automatic reactions. Each pause you take, each label you name, each breath you allow creates new neural architecture. Over time, the small choices compound and your life changes in ways that matter. Decisions you make with clarity, relationships that deepen, and opportunities you grasp instead of lose. Practice this work with curiosity and rigor, and you will become someone others turn to in moments that matter. Remember the simple refrain: breathe, notice, choose. Breathe, notice, choose. If this video helped, subscribe to get the 30-day plan and share one small moment you will change. The space between stimulus and response is not empty. It is where your power lives. Go use it.